Hey everybody, today I'd like to talk about a movie that I saw a few months ago called Everything Everywhere All at Once. I really liked it. I thought it was entertaining and funny, and I almost think I cried at one scene. But essentially, the story revolves around a protagonist named Evelyn who is dealing with a job at a laundromat, and she's having to go to, I believe, file taxes, and she all of a sudden has this break from reality, and she finds herself in multiple realities in like this multiverse, and her husband kind of takes her along in this journey, kind of showing her potential lives, her alternate, pretty much her alternate lives or her alternate reality that she could have lived in her past lives, all within contained within the multiverse. There was a lot going on, and of course, I'm probably not describing it at its best, but I found it interesting some of the videos that talked about how it was commentary on the information age, and specifically the internet, how we have so many options and so many choices and so much information and topics, whether it's Wikipedia or some of the stuff that we see with the progress that we're making in science is looking more like Everett's many worlds theory, where there is potentially a multiverse that exists. And but I just thought it was interesting because it's not only a commentary on the overload of information that we get, seeing this influx of other people's lives and cultures, and it's all contained within this one thing that we can just access on our phone or on a computer. In some ways, that's kind of analogous to um, what we see in the movie Everything Everywhere All at Once. Being able to see that happening for Evelyn, where she sees these multiple worlds, these multiple parallel realities, all of which she exists in, and living out different lives, whether one of success or fame or being a chef, or she had so many lives of where she thinks she could have headed, and it's represented in those parallel realities. And I just thought it was interesting because she's an older woman, and and I think we all kind of think about that when we get older, is you know what sort of potential realities could we have lived in our life if we would have made a different choice or a different decision. And it's quite something to think about. I also found it interesting that some people thought it was comparative to ADHD, being able to have that condition where you have so many ideas and thoughts, and you can't quite concentrate or focus on one specific thing. You kind of want to take it all on, kind of multitask, but then you end up not getting anything done. I think that's part of it. Of course, I don't actually have the condition. I'm sure those that have seen the movie could probably have more insight, that actually have the diagnosis, if they felt they connected to it. I myself was able to relate to it because I have bipolar disorder, and I felt like the it was very much comparative to the manic episode states that I would experience. Manic episodes are essentially having grandiose delusions or beliefs in yourself. But that is like just the tip of the iceberg. That doesn't quite explain what's going on in the mind. But essentially, I think a lot of it is pattern recognition, being able to see uh, patterns and choices that we make in our lives, and the idea that there's so much potential within us when we're younger. And I think a lot of people, when they're younger, are diagnosed bipolar, is because there are so many potential realities of what they could be, that sometimes they want to be all of it all at once. That's almost what my generation, the millennials, were taught, is that we should dream big. And I've always been a dreamer, but I've always also been aware that dreams can almost be, there's a fine line between having a dream and a vision and it becoming a delusion. And so but in that regard, in comparison to the movie, um, just this the idea of potential, the potential of a multiverse or a potential of parallel realities happening, is something that already exists within the creative artist, and the specifically creative artists who deal with bipolar disorder like myself, um, and write different genres and different worlds, and all in some ways project myself or a character into the story. And so I'm in some ways experiencing what the characters are experiencing, and in different narratives and worlds. And I've kind of found myself that it's even analogous to our selection of movies. We just have a selection of options these days, and we have just an infinite library of books and movies now that it would take multiple lifetimes to be able to really study everything that exists on this world. you know and I think that culturally speaking, I thought it was curious in the movie that she has the thing on her third eye, and I thought that that was kind of relevant to Hinduism, and how um, we kind of take on these different avatars in our life, and in some ways her parallel self in the other multiverses were other versions of herself, other avatars. um, at least that's kind of how I see it. But I just found it curious that, like, the feelings that a person goes through with mania, with going through a manic episode, feels much like Everything Everywhere All at Once, the movie. Like, what Evelyn goes through is, I'm sure, what it feels like for some people with ADHD, but it also kind of feels like it can be definitely expressed for people who deal with um, psychosis or manic episodes, or even in some ways probably schizoaffective disorder, because I have that as well. Being able to see things and experience things and see people and hear things that aren't necessarily there because you're all stuck in one place. And that's, I've always wondered, what if the people that deal with psychosis are actually seeing into another parallel reality, that the voices that they hear and the things that they see that aren't there are actually something that are of some kind of significance. And so but yeah, so that's pretty much all I wanted to express. I think it was a really interesting movie, and I just wanted to kind of give my insight into that, and just express that this is the culture of our times, that the that as we continue to grow as society with the development in science, whether both um, virtual or mixed reality or augmented reality, we're going to be dealing with multiple realities as society progresses. And it's going to take a toll on each individual person, because they probably won't be able to tell the difference between the virtual and the real world. And in some ways that will be analogous to this movie, just parallel realities, parallel lives that we'll be living, and which technically already happen with people that have um, a perception that is an altered state of consciousness. That's ultimately what I see psychosis as, is an altered state of consciousness, um, one in which you see potential realities and potential futures of yourself. And also, for me, what it was is that I felt like everything everywhere was happening all at once for me. For each episode that I was going, there was almost like I was revisiting past memories, past lives, past traumas, and it was happening all in within one instant. That past and present and future were happening simultaneously. And so, but yeah, I just wanted to kind of express my interest in exploring more about this movie. This probably won't be the only movie. This probably won't be the only video that I talk about when it comes down to this movie. So, anyways, thank you for listening.